Hey guys, it's Max. The West Austin Strangler's back. It's a beautiful day here. I got Jackson by my side. He's back there chilling. All right. Today I want to talk about Max's two-step. It's a strategy that I trade, and I like quite a bit. I want to tell you guys about it. All right. Let's talk about the theory of the strategy first, and then we'll actually go to option strat and we'll simulate a couple of trades. All right. Financial alchemy. Okay, well, alchemy is a medieval science, or kind of a quasi-science, that dealt with, it was the object of the science, the goal was for them to turn invaluable objects like a rock into something valuable, like gold or a diamond. That was alchemy. You've heard of turning water into wine. That would be a form of alchemy. Um, in engineering, you have, and I never took much science or much engineering, but from what I understand, you can't generate light or you can't have light without generating heat. So for good things, there's usually a bad byproduct. Um, they've tried for years to invent a perpetual motion machine, but it won't work for several reasons. But one reason is because the machine has friction. I mean, another reason is because the machine itself generates heat. The machine takes fuel to run. It would be great if you could invent a perpetual motion machine, but no one's been able to do that yet. In finance, the equivalent would be to be able to be long and short at the same time. To be long volatility would be great because you could take advantage of all the days where the market's up 2%, like it looks like it might do today. And you could also take advantage of days, when we have black swan events, like in February and March of 2020. That'd be great if you had long volatility then. What short volatility does for you is make money on all the other days, the other 80 or 90% of the days when the market does nothing or behaves normally. And short volatility profits in that circumstance. So you can be long and short at the same time with many different option strategies, or you could do it with stocks and commodities also. But the problem with options particularly is your long options, the ones where you're long volatility and you own that you own the chance to make money on the black swan risk. Well, the cost of that ownership would be that long options bleed or they decay, but they erode or they decay because of the time passing. And that's why people like to sell options lots of times, because you can actually take advantage of that. The problem is when you do those types of strategies, the selling option strategies that make money 80 or 90% of the time, or 60 or 70 or whatever. Then when a black swan hits, it blows up that strategy. So it's a delicate tightrope that traders have been trying to walk forever. Um, Hedge funds have come up with a solution for this. Hedge funds have had the long short strategy forever, or it's also called pair trading or statistical arbitrage, and it's a good strategy. Say they have half the portfolio long and half the portfolio short. What this does for you is it insulates you from it prevents black swans, because if you do have a big move one direction or the other, the half the portfolio being one way and half the other way, it kind of cancels each other out. So it insulates you against having things like that happen to you. That's a good way to solve it. You can also buy stocks and then put on a collar. A collar is just an option strategy where you sell a call to finance buying a put. But anyway, doing that can make you long and short at the same time, and has some good benefits. Okay, but my way of doing it's different. I haven't seen anyone do it like I do it before, and but I realize a lot of people have tried it, but I haven't seen one that's doing my exact way. But there's tons of earning strategies out there. I'd be anxious to know what you guys are. I'm sure I'll hear about them in the comments. So the solution I came up with, or I've been working on for years, is my attempt to solve this problem. And I'm just going to use earnings as the backdrop or as the catalyst or whatever. They're just a way, I'm just going to structure these trades around the earnings event. To tell you the truth, I really haven't found a way to do this strategy without earnings. So it needs the earnings. Earnings are part of the part of the deal. But I'm still working on this. Maybe in the future I'll find a way to do this not related to earnings. But for now, it's an earnings trade. Okay, so what do we know about earnings? Whenever a stock's going to announce earnings the next week or whatever, volatility is always bid. Is always is going up. Usually volatility is increasing the closer you get to earnings, because people will start talking about it on CNBC. They'll come on and they'll have analysts on and say, how do you think Apple's earnings are going to be, or whatever the stock is. People will hear about that, and then people will decide. Some people will decide to YOLO and buy calls. Some people will buy puts. But in any event, the option prices will be bid. So we're going to try to take advantage of that with this strategy. The strategy is a two-step strategy. Step 2 is going to be in the next video. I don't want to make this video too long, but we're going to talk about step 1 today. The problem, though, I was going to say, is market makers understand the phenomenon of earnings being bid, and then as soon as earnings are announced, the volatility goes down. Well, the market maker knows this is going to happen, so he's going to price the options accordingly. He's not going to give you free money. Like we talked about last week, there's no such thing as free money. Money doesn't fall out of the sky. It just doesn't happen. All right, so I'm going to turn off my picture-in-picture so we can see option strat better. Okay, but here's step 1 of the two-step process. We're going to, the week before earnings, we're looking at earnings on next Thursday right now, and it's Friday, so approximately a week before. But a week before, we are going to put on a straddle-strangle swap for the week. Some of you guys know about the straddle-strangle swap. We've been talking about it a lot on my channel because it's the trade that TRES is doing. What it is, it's where you buy a straddle. It's where you sell a straddle to finance buying a strangle. I started. Okay, so here's my process. I thought you guys might like to look into this. So I look at the earnings calendar. And generally, I like stocks that have earnings Wednesday or Thursday, because options expire Friday, and I want the earnings to be as close to the expiration as possible. So I'm going to go out here. Sometimes I do Wednesday also. That one time I told you about, I did a straddle-strangle swap. I did this exact strategy on Lululemon and made a killing on it. And Lululemons were Friday after the bell. However, back then I just had step 1. It wasn't a two-step, and since then I made it a two-step process. So I maybe shouldn't have mentioned Lululemon, but it was the exact same trade. It was the straddle-strangle swap. So let's see here. We have Kroger Thursday before the open. Burlington. Usually I like a big tech company or something. Let's check after the close. Okay, bingo. Broadcom. I mean, that's a great one to do now. So we're gonna do a straddle-strangle swap now on Broadcom, and we're gonna take it off at 2:55 Thursday afternoon, because they'll be announced at 3 o'clock my time on Thursday afternoon. So we're gonna put this on, and we're gonna take it off before earnings. When I did the Lululemon, I left it on through earnings, but I don't do that anymore. Even though that was a nice win, I realized that I didn't have a positive expectancy. I realized I actually had a negative expectancy. So that did give me step 1, and then I figured out step 2 in the meantime. All right, so here is our plan. We're going to go over here to option strat. Okay, so straddle-strangle swaps. Here's how I do it. Let me try to think the best way to explain this. First of all, you put Broadcom right there. Broadcom's an expensive stock. This is going to be kind of expensive to put on. Don't put this on with real money. We're just going to paper trade this. And, this is a very complex trade. But we're just doing this one. I don't even know if I would do this one in real life, because this would be expensive to put on. I usually like stocks that are around $100 to $200 to $300 is a good area to do this. But it doesn't matter, just to illustrate it. So the way we do a straddle-strangle swap is, there's multiple ways to do it. We're going to do a short straddle. Perfect. And then we're going to add, this is important. We have to, the short straddle has to be short in the week that Broadcom announces earnings, which would be the 8th. Broadcom announces earnings on the 7th, so we don't want to expire before earnings for sure, but we don't want to expire the week after earnings either. We need an expiry right as close to earnings as we can get it to take advantage of this this phenomenon. All right, so there's our straddle right there, and it is in the right time cycle. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go add a strangle. There's no way to add a strangle, but I'm going to add a buy call and add a buy put. But, very important, I have to put these into the next week. So we're going to say change expiration, and we're going to change those to the week of the 15th for their expiration. Change expiration. Here's the most important thing, and we're going to do it on a ratio basis. We're going to buy twice as many as we're short. So we're going to add there, and we're going to add there. So that is our straddle-strangle swap right there. The straddle is where is a call and a put at the same price. A strangle is a call and a put that are both out of the money. The call in this case is a few strikes above the current price. The put's a few strikes under the current price. So then what I do is I take a look at the way this is shaped. That's our profit and loss graph. Sometimes I adjust the widths of the wings to try to, I might do that. Sometimes I move it in a little tighter or whatever. I try to minimize the valley of death. And the valley of death, don't be fooled by this. It's a lot bigger than it looks right here. But still, I try to minimize the way it looks right here. Okay, so yeah, we're going to do that. So then what we're going to do, well, let me tell you, okay, what we're going to do, here's the play. The reason you do this, or what you're hoping for, you own twice as many options as you're short. So what you're hoping for is between now and Thursday, when Broadcom announces that volatility will increase, and it usually does. So let's say a volatility goes up 5%. Okay, it went up 6-7% there, but it's not uncommon for volatility to go up 5 or 10% the week of earnings, sometimes more. What you do is you put yourself in a situation, or the market helps put you in a situation where you can't lose. We're going to take it off right before earnings come out, but hopefully for a small profit. Even if the price doesn't move, we're going to hopefully make a small profit. Now, I know $1,000 isn't a small profit, but these are just so expensive. This trade would cost $10,000 to put on. That's above my comfort level. When I made the Lululemon trade, Lululemon was trading in the 200s, and that trade took $2,000 to put on, and that was still pretty expensive. You don't really have $2,000 at risk, and on this trade, you don't really have $10,000 at risk. I guess you technically do, but not the way I trade it. But still, the play on this, we're going to go take it into earnings, and we're going to hope that volatility increases a little bit, and we're going to hope to take this off for a few $100 before earnings ever come out. We aren't going to worry about what happens after earnings. Now, it is going to make us mad if after earnings Broadcom's up 10% and you could have made, $20,000 or something, but we aren't going to worry about that because what happens lots of times, as soon as earnings come out, then volatility drops 10%. And then if you don't get the move you want, you end up losing money. And if sometimes volatility drops a lot and you don't get the move, you might lose, half your debit or something. And you definitely don't want that to happen. So we aren't even going to mess with earnings. We're going to put it on now. We're going to take it off 5 minutes before earnings come out. Then that's where step 2 comes in. Step 2 is a different strategy. And it doesn't necessarily even have to be on the same stock. We might even do step 2 on a different stock. The idea of having this on, though, the step 1 part of it is between now and Thursday, it's also, this is like a nice side effect of this trade. We have a free black swan hedge. Because if we do have a big market crash, even if it's a little market crash, if the market goes down like 3% one day and 4% the next and 5% the next, and we drop 10% in a few days real fast, it's not exactly a crash. But you know what that would do to the price of Broadcom? I mean, it doesn't matter about earnings. If something like that happened Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, Broadcom might drop 15%, and we might be able to take this off for a lot of money right before earnings comes out. But at a minimum, we're trying to take it off for just anything in the positive. The theory is Step 1, which is what this is, finances step 2, which we're going to talk about next week. Check out what happened last week on a closed trade. I didn't screenshot it before I closed it, but I did this last week, and the top 2 lines here perfectly illustrates the strategy, and it illustrates to me the alchemy part of it. So this CRM trade right here, this was my long volatility step 1 trade, and it made $253. Took it off 5 minutes before earnings, and then I turned around and put a trade on Mara. I think I told you guys about the Mara trade here, but I hadn't decided to make a series out of the straddle-strangle swap and out of the entire strategy. I just thought you guys might be interested in just general earnings plays, and that Mara strategy was how I normally, is a good way to play earnings, and anyway, and so I just thought I'd do that and see if people were interested. Well, a lot of people were interested, so I decided to go more in depth on the strategy. But in any event, to go more in depth this week, in any event, the CRM trade financed the Mara trade. I think I had $300 at risk on the CRM straddle-strangle swap. And like I say, I took it off, and then I put on the Mara trade. Now, the Mara trade, I had a huge advantage in my favor, and there was a lot of nice things about it. I was selling that out of the money call, if you guys remember. I was trying to monetize that, the call skew, and also the extra premium that's available around options time, around earnings time, I should say. Well, the Mara trade didn't work out, but it didn't really matter that much to me because of the first trade of step 1. So the idea is, of course, that step 1 pays for step 2, but the real idea is if you could ever have a strategy where you could either break even or make money, that's financial alchemy, because then you've eliminated risk. That's the whole deal. And this strategy doesn't do that, of course, but it puts risk to a big minimum for sure. So but that's where the financial alchemy comes in. That's where I got that from. Well, here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Save Trade. We're going to say on here, Step 1, Broadcom. Let's do this. Let's do this real quick. Let's look what else. Costco, Marvell Technology, or Marvel. I don't know how you say that. It's not like Marvel comic books. I used to think that was like Marvel comic books, but it's a Marvell Technology. I didn't used to, but I got confused once when I saw the symbol. All right, so let's go. They also have earnings Thursday after the bell. Let's see if anyone else does. Gap stores might work. Let's do Gap stores just to give us a little diversity, since we already have a tech one on with Broadcom. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back over here, back to editor. We're going to type in GPS for Gap stores. Okay, then we're going to do build a short straddle. Okay, and it is in the right cycle. It expires on the 8th. So then we're going to do buy a call, buy a put. We're going to put the call out of the money and put the put out of the money. So that is, well, that is a strangle, but we also need it to be a strangle in the next expiration cycle. So I'm going to switch this to the week of the 15th. I'm going to switch this to the week of the 15th. Okay. So now we still have one more thing to do. We have to make this twice as many strangles as we have straddles. So I'm going to have 2 there and 2 there. Okay. So this is going to be our profit and loss graph, and sometimes I mess with the strikes, but that looks fine. I'm just trying to illustrate this. All right, so we're going to also have this trade on, GPS, and we're going to take this off 5 minutes before earnings, and then we're going to do step 2. Maybe on this stock, or maybe on a different one. We'll get to all that later. I think this is enough learning for one day. So we're going to call this step 1 GPS. All right. All right, guys. But a good side effect of that is I do like these trades, because even though these are earnings trades and they aren't trying to profit off a big black swan, And the other thing I like is it's a black swan either way. Wonder if the Fed comes out and says they're going to lower interest rates next week or something. And the market goes up 10% over a 3 days time period or something. We'd be fine in that case too. Let's see, back to editor. Because if the market goes up 10%, you can bet Gap Stores is going to go up, with it, and we'll make some profit. It'll be a side effect. We aren't trying to make profit that way, but it's almost like we have free or we have a cheap shot at or a cheap protection. And I love how it's protection on the downside and on the upside. Let's look back here at Gap Stores real quick. So what we're playing for is a little increase. It's at 104 vol right now, so it goes up 10%. It's at 114 vol right before earnings. And then hopefully we can take this off for something, some kind of profit somewhere in here. Like I say, and the profit that this thing gives us will give us a free shot, basically, at step 2. This is going to finance step 2. All right. Remember, guys, not financial advice. Don't do this with real money. Hey, Jackson, are you coming to be in the video? Don't do this with real money. Let's learn together. Tell me in the comments, what are your favorite earnings trades? Step 2 is a more typical type earnings trade. Straddle-strangle swaps, really no one does. The only people I've ever heard called a straddle-strangle swap is the Tasty Trade guys. And then I heard Panda say it, and he worked on Wall Street, so I'm pretty sure that's a real thing. The straddle-strangle swap's a real thing. But not only is this a straddle-strangle swap, it's a ratioed straddle-strangle swap. And I've never heard the Tasty Trade guys talk about that. Like I said, Panda knows about it, though, and was talking about it. Panda calls it the mullet trade because it's business in the front. The front would be the short straddle, and party in the rear. Party in the rear is all those long options that give you the black swan protection. Anyway, you guys have a great day, and I'll be back. I'll come back next week, and we'll have another lesson. Then on Thursday, we'll do step 2. Maybe we'll do it live right about 2:50. We'll do it maybe live. I think that might be fun, especially if I get a good response on this video. All right, guys. You guys have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you later.